contacted it and just had a little fun with them and stuff. Could have been that too.
Yeah. So I guess for me, that's like where I land, and I don't know if you guys have anything else to add to that.
Not really. I just think it was somebody who was just kind of punking everybody.
I'll say that you had mentioned just recently, or just a last minute or two, the whole Mayan calendar thing, which 2012 was the year that the calendar was ending, and we were all going to go splat in the cosmos because we were going to get wiped out from something.
Yeah. It was actually December 21st, 2012, so...
Yeah. But it was somewhere in there. But it was somewhere in 2012, and
by the way, Mayans, big fail.
Yeah, the calendar sucked. But there was a whole bunch of stuff on the internet about how, well, while this is going to happen according to Mayan calendar, it could be that is actually not right, and it's a year ahead of time. And October 28th of 2011 is referenced in a boatload of places as being the actual date of something happening.
Well, that's the same thing that I'm talking about. It's the end of one era, the beginning of this new era.
And it's the awakening is what they call it. There's a video. It's titled The Quickening or The Awakening. It's a Vimeo video, and it's like an hour and 15 minutes. And I watched about 4 minutes, and then I couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah,
and I read the description, and then I couldn't take that, and I moved away. Mm-hmm. But there's all this. Like I'm in agreement with you if there's this, and I don't know that it's necessarily a kid, but somebody who's like suddenly come to this. There's this higher consciousness, this spiritualism. I'm trying. I want to say in the late '60s, early '70s. They had these weird psychedelic. Who did the melting clock and had the giant mustache?
Salvador Dali.
Yeah, they had these weird Dali-esque covers that had moss on them, and I tried to read some. It's the same like new agey spiritual stuff. So that's the only thing that I can describe from it.
Yeah.
The only other thing that I came across once in the text is that I think that Open, actually the name of the person who is Open is Red.
Yeah. Wow. And you mentioned that to me, yeah.
Yeah, and that is because one time in the early pages, there is text written on a page, and carriage return after carriage return, and then it is dash red, as in signed this sentence from Red.
Well, and you can see that as well in that one little bit of hidden text that we saw in the code where it's like consciousness is red.
Blah, 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 yeah.
Which is, I mean, interesting.
And Red would be more of a nickname, but...
Yeah, for sure. But more than Open.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I guess this isn't to say, like, I think collective consciousness is, like, a really interesting idea overall. And I do hope to sometime tackle it. I've been talking about this like literally since we started the show. It's a really big topic, but I don't think that this is like you don't just like sit and stare at somebody's eyes and like suddenly you can understand. There was a poll. This was an interesting one, right? There was a poll on.
Oh, that's right, 1 through 10.
It was 1 through 10, and it was like pick your number, and it was like 90% of the people said 7, which I guess doesn't surprise me a whole lot because when somebody says like pick a number between 1 and 10, like. Pretty often, I'm like, yeah, 7.
You're gonna know what you're gonna do is you're gonna go to the center,
and then you're gonna adjust,
and then you're gonna adjust one way or the other. Yeah.
Right.
And that's a known thing for in the medical practice because they always say name your pain on a scale of 1 through 10, and I always have nothing's wrong. You know, you do a low number, and if it's high, but you don't want to sound like you're seeking pain meds or anything. Oh, it's a 7. It's a pretty high 7.
I was to say 12. Then they give me morphine.
Yeah, and you're perfect.
Got to 11.
Yeah. So I guess I don't know where I stand on this. I think I'll be really interested to see, like, hopefully people will engage with us on this and really go out and look at the stuff. And
it might also be the creator of the website will contact us and tell us the whole story.
Open if you want.
And say, hey, take down this stuff. You've misrepresented
totally doxed me. Come on, guys.
Oh, yeah. And by the way, speaking of the Mayan calendar in 2012, don't see the movie.
Don't do it. Yeah.
have you
really.
seen that movie?
Don't see the John Cusack movie either.
That's what I was talking about.
Oh, that
the John
one. Oh,
Cusack
yeah.
movie.
That and we jumped a limo over a gap in the earth.
Yeah. Well, I like they had this underwater fight, in the bowels of one of these great arcs that they built, and he is literally like underwater fighting and struggling and getting swept back and forth for like 5 minutes.
Oh, well,
and doesn't drown.
he's got
Amazing.
he practiced. He swims a lot.
I guess, yeah.
He does.
Anyway, it's a stupid movie. That's
It
enough
is.
said about that. But
Yeah.
Very.
So, like I said, the PDF that we created, as well as some of our links for research, will be on our website. That website is thinkingsidewayspodcast.com. You can listen to us on iTunes. You can stream us almost anywhere. If you can, leave a comment and a rating and subscribe on whatever you're listening to, please do so. We have some social media. You can find us on Facebook. There's a group and a page. The group would be where you would start a discussion about this.
Yeah, don't do it on the page.
But
It's harder to have a discussion on the page.
it's almost impossible because nobody sees it. Do it in the group, but also see if somebody has already done that,
yes.
please, because it's going to be hard to have this conversation in 12 different places at once.
good point.
There's the Twitter.
we should probably one of us should go in
Just
on that
start
day
one.
and start the thread.
Yeah.
And then everybody can just look for the one that we
look
start.
for our thread. We have a Twitter. We're thinking sideways. Don't start a conversation there, please, because I won't know how to do that. We've got the subreddit, which I think is my ideal place to have this conversation, and that is Thinking Sideways.
That would be a good place. I think that would kick Facebook fast.
for the
Yeah.
for the Reddit users, yeah, that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, or go get a Reddit account. It's
Yeah.
super fast. You can contact us if you want to send us an email. We're thinkingsidewayspodcast@gmail.com. Comments, concerns, general accolades, whatever you want to say. And then you can also support the show if you are so inclined. You can buy merch. We've got shirts, mugs, and stickers.
Other things.
And nightlights still maybe.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, nightlights
phone
are still there.
cases, stuff like that.
Finish up on that other shirt. Crap.
Yeah.
Okay.
Zazzle and Redbubble are your spot for those. There's links on the right-hand sidebar of our website for those. You can do one-time donations on PayPal. You can set up recurring donations, but why? On PayPal. And then also we've got Patreon if you want to be a continuous or sustaining sponsor. You pledge a certain amount per episode, and then you get charged at the end of the month for all the episodes we put out. But it's only the regular ones, so it's just the Thursday.
If we do a short, something like that.
we
you
don't charge for
get
those.
that.
Yeah.
And we need to do one of those soon. We haven't done one of those.
We haven't done a
forever.
short in forever. I
Yeah.
know it's time. There's lots of them out there.
So in 6 months, we'll
Yeah.
put out a short.
Yeah.
Yeah, we gotta do it.
Okay, all of that having been said, this ended up being really long.
Sorry.
But I hope you were interested in it. And
I hope you weren't confused.
And I hope you guys all have a really good Halloween.
Yeah.
Remember the colored orbs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Purple means go.
Is that what it means? Oh, okay. All right. Happy Halloween, everybody. Bye.
Bye, guys.
This episode of Thinking Sideways is not brought to you by Puddin'. Instead, it's brought to you by all those little fuzzy creatures that you want to take home and make friends. I know I adopted a critter. She's right here. Wave, kitten. You can't hear that, but that's her fuzzy paw waving into the microphone. And she's the best little kitten ever. And if you want to get yourself a friend, don't go to the pet store. Go down to your local shelter and adopt a puppy or a kitten or a full-grown adult dog or cat or whatever else they have. And if you've hit your pet quotient, which there really is, there's a limit, don't get too many, then you can still help out by donating your time or your money. They always need help. So go down there and make it happen.
Thinking sideways.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Thinking Sideways, the podcast. I am Devin, joined as always by
Joe.
who already looks bored, and
No.
Steve. Sorry, I was looking at him. He kind of had.
He
this-
looks super bored already.
He had the face of somebody who's been caught. He had the expression of that, like, oops.
I'm serious. That's all. I feel
Oh.
serious
This is a
about
super
this whole
serious
thing.
episode.
This is a serious topic here.
All right.
Okay.
This is about that continent at the bottom of our world that keeps us right side up.
It
because
is.
It weighs a lot.
It's true. It's
Is
true.
that the center of gravity, or is that the fulcrum?
It's our ballast. It's our ballast.
Oh God, another term.
Another
Gets me every
term.
time.
The center of gravity is in the middle of the Earth.
That's
Yeah.
the North Pole.
Yeah.
Right. Obviously. Sorry.
Yeah.
We've already divulged. It's fine. This is going to
Oopsie.
be good. Devolved, not divulged.
Yeah, no, divulge would be sharing some. Yeah, you got it.
That's
Yeah.
great. Today's episode was recommended by Colton. So thanks, Colton.
Hey, thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Guy.
Or
Thanks, guy.
woman, or thanks, person.
Pal.
Yeah, I don't know.
Buddy.
Yeah.
And we are going to talk about Operation High Jump and the many weird conspiracy mysteries that surround it.
Yay!
Okay.
It's
The
gonna be chilling.
Bodie mystery, kind of.
It's kind of got some boats
It's kind of a
involved.
lot of different mysteries put together.
There's a lot of weird stuff going on here.
It's true. Including me. You are likely
You
unfamiliar.
notice nobody's saying
Oh!
No, there's nothing weird about you.
Weird
Devin.
pause.
Sorry.
Great.
I totally dropped the ball on that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
You are likely unfamiliar with Operation High Jump, which was officially called the United States Navy Antarctic Developments Program 1946 to 1947, and rightfully so, because why would you know about this?
Uh-huh.
Operation High Jump was one of 28 expeditions made to Antarctica, which is the South Pole for you people who don't know what that is.
Geographically confused.
Yeah. 5 of these 28 were taken on by the United States. Unsurprisingly, Britain holds the record because they just like to colonize everything.
They visit everywhere.
They do, yeah. They visited Antarctica 11 times. And visits are still happening. These are just these like grand expeditions.
These
that are-
little-
Expeditions of discovery.
Yeah.
Yeah, there actually were a lot of the Argentines, for example, have been sort of poking around Antarctica since like the early 19th century. I mean,
Well,
very early 19th
They're
century.
much closer than we are. So.
They definitely. It's
That
a lot
helps.
easier for them.
Yeah. This specific expedition took place, if you were paying attention, you may already know. It took place from 1946 to 1947 and involved 4,700 men and lots of boats and aircrafts. Officially, there were 6 submissions of this expedition. Yep. The primary mission of the expedition being establishing Little America 4. Yeah, 4.
No.
I don't remember Roman numerals. It's fine.
I was like, IV?
IV.
So Little America 4.
Little America 4, which was just the base of operations for Operation High Jump. So,
Literally the jumping off point.
well, yeah, it's kind of weird. They were like, well, our primary goal is to establish the base of the operations for the expedition, where our primary goal is to establish the base of operations for our primary expedition goal.
I really feel like I'm watching a Leslie Nielsen movie.
Yeah, a little bit.
That's like, we were at a part of town they called Little Italy. Did you ever see that episode?
Of course I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, the submissions, not to be confused with submissions, were 1, training personnel and testing equipment in frigid conditions. 2, consolidating and extending the United States sovereignty over the largest practicable area of the Antarctic continent. This was publicly denied, even before the expedition ended. It's always been denied. 3, determining the feasibility of establishing, maintaining, and utilizing bases in the Antarctic for investigation and investigating possible base sites. 4, developing techniques for establishing, maintaining, and utilizing air bases on ice, with particular attention to later applicability of such techniques to operations in interior Greenland, where conditions are comparable to those of the Antarctic. So, what are you guys doing living there? All the 50,000 listeners we have in Greenland.
Yeah. Well, how many people live in Greenland anyway?
50,000, and all of
Is it
them listen to
50,000?
us. Yeah.
They're required to by law.
Yeah. The 5th submission was amplifying existing stores of knowledge of electromagnetic, geological, hydrographic, and meteorological propagation conditions in the area. This is fancy talk, you guys. I'm sorry. And somebody printed the script like front to back, so it's like it's fine. And
It's cheap paper.
I know. And 6 is supplementary objectives to the Nanook expedition, which was a smaller expedition to Greenland,
Yeah.
off of the east of Greenland. But
Yeah, I guess Greenland is rather inhospitable from what I've heard.
yeah.
Oh, that was, oh God, who was it that discovered Greenland? Do either of you remember?
I
Because
thought
they
it was-
named it Greenland in an attempt to encourage people to move there to make it sound more hospitable and
Yeah,
nicer. It's a green land.
It was the Vikings, I think, but it was, but actually that was, I think, in the medieval warm period or something like that, or even before that.
Oh,
And
was it?
actually, and it actually wasn't all iced over, at least
Wow.
not nearly as much.
So it was kind of
today.
greenish.
It was a lot greener than it
Green
is today.
snow?
Yeah.
So, in an effort to try to summarize, as many of you have been asking for lately, in like 5 sentences or less, what this mystery is, the mystery here is that a lot of people think that this is just a big cover-up for one of many different reasons, and I want to play it a little close to the chest and not tell you.
Sure.
But basically, that the Navy was sent to battle with like UFOs or like
Or the Nazis.
aliens or Nazis or to hide some stuff from public consumption. So that's our mystery: is what really was Operation High Jump and what were their actual missions?
Now, first of all, when the military wants to hide something, they just take it to Area 51. So
Usually-
I'm going to shoot that one down right away.
Okay.
Yeah, but they can't
Yeah.
get all of Antarctica in Area 51. I mean,
yeah.
the temperature's totally different.
Yeah, but on the other
Well,
hand,
maybe they could, because
Yeah,
if you just melt it down, I don't know how much
Yeah.
there is. Let's talk about Operation High Jump for a minute. We're going to talk about who was involved and like what ships were involved, and maybe Joe knows some things about some of these ships. I don't know.
No, probably not.
Operation High Jump was officially organized by Rear Admiral Richard E. Byrd Jr., the United States Navy retired. He was the officer in charge of Task Force 68, which
He was not retired at the time.
Sorry, he
though,
was
right?
not retired at the time. He was retired eventually.
Yeah.
He was still active, but he was the officer in charge of Task Force 68, which is what Operation High Jump, all of the people who were a part of it, they were part of Task Force 68, and a lot of them were like Task Force 68.1.
Or 1.0.
Why not? Yeah. Oh, and it was led by Rear Admiral Richard H. Cruzen.
Because Byrd wasn't there on the ground, per se, the whole time.
He showed up pretty late and left pretty early.
Right.
Yeah.
That was kind of his gig, but he was not actually the point man.
It was kind of his gig because you may or may not know this about Byrd. He claims to have been the first person to reach both the North and South Poles. There's a lot of contentions about this claim. It is documented he reached the South Pole fine, but a lot of people think he didn't actually reach the North Pole.
There's a lot of contention about people who reach the poles. Every
Yeah.
time
Yeah.
somebody says it, they're like, if you can't easily prove it, as in you took 100 people or filmed the whole thing,
Well,
it was
even
always
if-
contested.
Even if you took 100 people, it's kind of difficult sometimes. Well, I mean, I guess if you have the right instruments,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can prove that you were
But
there.
it's hard. I mean, there's not. Our listeners, I think, probably know this, but maybe not. There's not actual poles just like sticking out of
Yeah, no.
the ground that say like this is the North Pole and this is the South Pole, and
Well, technically there
congratulations, you've
have
made
been.
it.
Yeah.
Technically, there have been people who have gone, figured out their location, said, I am at the pole, stuck a pole in the ground,
Yeah.
and if you wait 25 minutes, that pole is no longer at the north
Right.
because of the ice shelves moving on the north anyway.
And to be fair, I meant like naturally occurring poles. It's not
Oh,
like
you mean
everybody
like
could
you see
say,
in the-
yeah, when you get to that pole, you're at the North Pole
Just like
because it's the North Pole.
Yeah, like a top's got that little thing sticking off the top of it that you use to spin it with your fingers, right?
Yeah, it is a little known fact that the Earth does not spin because God is just like whipping us around like a top every once in a while.
yeah.
That's not how it works. Sorry.
Oh, it isn't?
No, but we'll talk about that on a different episode.
Okay.
Anyway, Byrd had been previously on a funded expedition. The first United States expedition to the Antarctica was called like Byrd's Expedition or something like that, and he led it, and that was his big thing, was leading these extravagant expeditions.
Because these things always turn out so well.
Right. So that's why he was like in charge of the whole thing. I think he convinced some lawmakers and the president that it was worth it
or somebody said, "Hey, that guy, we should bring him in. He's done it before."
The impression I have is that he brought it to their attention, actually.
Oh,
that he was like, you know what we should do again? Go to the South Pole.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Well,
and
he
again,
probably did, probably did say something on the order of, there's a lot of people going down there and setting up bases. We better go down and just sort of stake a claim.
yeah, and we'll talk about a lot of the actual
Reasoning.
a little bit later. There were 5 different groups on the expedition, and they went different ways. I don't know. Look at the map. There were different approaches that people took.
They came all over the place.
They did, and it was kind of interesting actually. They ended up kind of completely coming from totally opposite directions to Antarctica, and basically the Navy just kind of circumvented the entire
Circumnavigated?
That works a little better. Yeah.
the entire continent of Antarctica. They made a big circle in kind of simultaneously around it, which again has a lot of people scratching their heads.
Really?
The East Group was 3 ships, which was the USS Pine Island.
Wait, so but back up here. This entire expedition was broken into how many groups?
5.
5 groups total.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what we're describing as each of the groups.
Yeah.
Okay, just make sure I was on board with where we were.
Yeah, super important to the whole story.
Yeah.
The USS Pine Island, which was a seaplane tender, and there were over 30 aircraft.
Just plural is aircraft.
Yeah.
Without the S.
Over 30 aircraft that also participated in this expedition, both seaplanes and pontoon helicopters, which I think there's an actual term for, but I could not remember.
I don't know. It's a good question.
It's fine.
Little floaty helicopters?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, with pontoons on
The
the
ones that
bottom.
go bouncy when they land.
Yeah, the USS Brownson, which was a destroyer, and the USS Canisteo, which was a tanker. And these were all kind of state-of-the-art ships, by the way, as we're going through this. A couple of them were actually the most state-of-the-art ships of the time.
Recently
but
built
most of
because-
them were
yeah.
pretty new.
Well, this is the year after World War II in the U.S.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We've been churning out.
We built a lot of ships. And so, hey.
We had to put them to use.
That's probably what this was all about. It's we got some bored sailors.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll give them something to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shh, shh, shh.
Oh, sorry.
The central group was the USS Mount Olympus, which was in charge of all of the communications for this expedition, and later became kind of the floating communications hub once they got to the space where they were going, which was the Ross Ice Shelf, right off the Ross Sea. So, those of you who know...
Ross Ice Shelf.
Yeah, those of you who know the landscape of the Antarctic know what I'm talking about, but probably no one else does. So we'll talk about that in a second.
Speaking of which, if you look at a map of Antarctica and you see there's the Weddell Sea, which is to the east of the Antarctic Peninsula that stretches up towards South America, and then go way around that peninsula and there's a Ross Ice Shelf, and there's all sorts of seas, and there's just every at regular intervals this sea,
there's
that
a different
sea.
sea. Yeah.
And it's I don't see any particular reason why you should call this a sea, because there's nothing sticking out and kind of defining it as a bay, a sea, or anything else.
It is my understanding that the reason that those are named, and please feel free to email us if this is wrong, but it was my impression that the reason that they're all named different things, lots of the land masses are named different things too, and that's because a bunch of different countries have come and been this is our sea, it's this thing.
Okay, and
this is ours.
That kind of makes a lot of sense.
That's kind
We
of
claim this whole area here. Everything we can see is ours.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
You can get all yours over there, and this is whatever we're doing here.
Yeah.
That's my understanding, at least.
No, I think so. Yeah, in Argentina, by the way, it's illegal in Argentina to sell a map of the country that does not include their chunk of Antarctica.
I believe that.
And they have a pretty substantial chunk.
Yeah.
Claim.
Yeah.
And
That's a waste of paper.
Yeah. It is.
So back to our ships. The USS Yancey was also part of the central group. The USS Merrick and the Yancey were both on supplies. That's all they were. The USS Senate, which is SENNET, not like Senate, like this Congress and the Senate, which was a submarine, and the USS Burton Island, and the USCGC, so the United States Coast Guard
Cutter.
craft,
Cutter.
Yeah.
cutter, Northwind, the Burton Island and the Northwind were both icebreakers, and the
Hey, that's handy
Northwind
down there.
was the only non-naval vessel that was sent on this expedition.
And
but
the only one that didn't survive. Yeah.
who killed it? But it was also literally state of the art. It was part of the Wind class. It was her and her sister ship, which was called the Southwind.
Makes sense.
I believe Southwind. And they were like state of the art, right off the line icebreakers, and they were in service for a really, really, really long time. This was one of the first expeditions that they were sent on. So again, we're sending fancy tools down here.
Mm-hmm.
There was the carrier group, which was just one ship. It was the USS Philippine Sea. And then the West group, which was the USS Currituck, which was another seaplane tanker. The USS Henderson, a destroyer, and finally the USS Casapan, which was another tanker.
Okay.
How many more ships do we have? This list is huge.
I know, I'm sorry.
Going on and on.
I told you there was a lot of ships.
Okay, listeners, you memorize
We
that?
got a lot of ships to go through.
Yeah. The Western group of ships reached the Marquesas Islands, which is part of French Polynesian Islands, or
Right.
French Polynesia.
Yeah, I hear that's a nice place. Like
I've heard that
Tahiti and all
too.
that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go.
Going to Tahiti.
Yeah. I'm going to go someday. Probably not as soon as you.
Yeah, the Polynesian Islands, they're super nice. French Polynesian Islands. There's also U.S. Polynesian.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
There's a bunch of different
There's
Polynesian
too many to
islands.
keep track
Yeah.
of at the moment.
These islands are parallel with northern Peru, kind of close to the equator, actually.
Yeah, not exactly a great place for as to set up as your base of Antarctic operations.
Yeah, it's
Not
basically halfway up the world.
really. Yeah. But I
They
think they wanted to just stop off and like party for a couple of weeks, maybe. That was like an integral part of the mission.
It really is. It was funny as I charted the course, just because I had Google Earth open and I was trying to figure out, which, by the way, figuring out north on the South Pole is really a pain in the butt.
Yep.
But
Right.
Yeah.
the point is, I was looking, I was like, okay, so where is this in relation to the United States? And if you left California and you went on a 45-degree angle, it is almost exactly halfway between the U.S. and Antarctica.
Yeah, it's not
So it
exactly
seems to be, as you said, kind of a stop-off point.
a little bit out of the way, though. Not kind of.
Well, one thing I will say is that it's not my understanding that all of these ships were coming from the same ports.
Oh, I'm sure they
You know,
were.
Probably not.
especially like even in the same group, right? The Western group was all coming from different ports, and they had to have some place where they were like, all right, meet there,
Yeah.
and then we'll all go through the dangerous part together, because that's why we're in a group, is so that we can, all work as a team to
yeah.
go down. So I think that it was probably a pretty convenient spot. I suspect that some of the ships were not coming from America. So it was like, let's just all meet here
they're
and party
probably-
for a little while and then go down.
Yeah,
It'll be
there were
fun.
probably some coming from who knows where, Japan or
Yeah.
Pearl Harbor or God knows where.
Yeah. So they didn't actually reach that set of islands until December 12th, 1946. So when we're talking about this expedition running from 1946 to 1947, I know you have the impression that it was like a year, but it
Yeah,
was really
2
like
years.
less than 6 months.
It was like a couple of months.
It
or
was
a
like
month.
3 or something.
Yeah, but less
It
than
was
6.
short, yeah.
It was
Initially, it's like, why are you going there in the winter? That's so dumb. But it's actually
The
it's actually
southern
the
hemisphere.
summer in Antarctica,
Yeah.
so it's
No.
the best time to
Yeah,
be there
yeah.
if there is a good time.
there's
They're a
not.
little
it turns out.
confused, that part of the world, yeah.
Yeah, they are.
They're upside down.
They
Yeah.
are.
When they all got there, a bunch of the seaplanes started exploring southerly just to make sure,
There was
hey,
still water
conditions
down
are
there.
good. Are there islands that we should stop at? Because I think, there was a lot of stuff that was still uncharted. I mean,
We didn't have satellites back in those days. Hard to remember, but
we were
yeah.
pretty sure we knew where things were. But, when you can't take pictures from space, you're like, well, I don't know. I think there might be an island there, but that could be from one of those fake maps that's, to test us.
We
or
talked
something.
about that years ago, yeah.
We did, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was on December 24th is when they launched those. So after 12 days, they launched all of these seaplanes to explore down in the south regions. The eastern group of ships reached Peter I Island in late December. There's not really a date attached to this. Late December of 46. The Peter I Island is just about 280 miles away from Antarctica.
That's kind of close.
That's 450 kilometers for you folks who don't use the smart measurements. It's currently claimed by Norway, along with our favorite little island, Bouvet Island.
By the way, is the boat still there?
I think so. I don't know. I haven't
Probably
gone
their
out
national
there.
monument.
Yeah.
It's the Norwegian National Monument. Actually, is this real weird boat on a
Yeah.
tiny little island on the totally other side of the world.
You know, if Norway had half a sense of humor, they would like take the boat away and replace it with another boat, that would, like a sailboat or God knows what. You know, they really
Yeah.
should just mess with the world's head.
You know what we should do is we should start a Kickstarter campaign or GoFundMe campaign to get all of us to go down to Bouvet Island, to just the three of us, and just replace the ship on our own. Don't you think? I think that's a good idea.
I will go. I will take that challenge.
I'll
yeah.
hire a stand-in. I believe it's going to be rather cold.
Yeah.
Oh, that's okay.
Cold.
That's what parkas are for.
I don't like the cold.
That's what tauntauns are for.
I don't like the cold.
Okay.
And it's not that bad in the summertime. Their summertime, not ours. Yeah.
Famous last words.
True.
Yeah.
Now, Antarctica has that kind of peninsula that Joe was talking about a little earlier that runs north towards South America. Mm-hmm. Granted, every peninsula off of Antarctica runs north, but this one like really runs north. It's the only peninsula.
Goes way the hell north.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are two kind of like gulfs. There's the one gulf that's like inside the peninsula,
Yeah,
and
the
then there's like
Weddell
the
Sea.
gulfs on the outside,
Yeah.
both of which have ice shelves over the gulfs. The Ross Ice Shelf, which is where Little America was
I don't know if it's still there or not.
probably still there. There were a lot of Little Americas. It's kind of like south of New Zealand, kind of on the other side. It's hard, like Steve was saying, like it's almost impossible to say like it's no like there's no
Getting your bearings is difficult.
yeah you
Yeah.
can't say well it's like north, it's like east, it's like well,
You need to go by longitude. I mean, that's the only way to do it. I mean,
Right.
So starting at 0 degrees and just working your way around, that's kind
yeah
of the way to do it.
I didn't do that, so
Using a
Yeah.
calculator like that is annoying, though.
Yeah.
So
realistically,
Yeah.
what you have to do is if you really care about where the Ross Ice Shelf is just Google it. It'll pop
it's easy
up.
to see. Easy
Yeah,
to find.
it's white. You have to
Yeah.
zoom out a lot before you can see anything but white. But then it'll show up and it's fine.
Yeah.
That was just to help you get a little bit of bearings. The Eastern group arrived at the Bay of Whales, which is a seaport for the Ross Ice Shelf.
And it actually was. It went away.
Okay, it was.
Yeah. It kind of disappeared when an iceberg was born.
Melted or whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
So they got to the Bay of Whales, like I said, on January 15th of 47. A little more than like a month later. Yeah, in late February of 1947, they were ordered to return home.
mission is a success. Go home.
Plus, it's getting
We
freaking
did it!
cold.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's another reason.
Yeah. The goings on of the actual time on the Ross Ice Shelf aren't particularly well documented for public consumption, which is why we get to do an episode on it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was not. They didn't have like documentary film crews along for the whole.
They
ride.
did have some journalists, but since it was an active mission of the military,
Plus, the journalists all died, didn't they?
no. 4 men did die, but none of them were journalists. But they you know, the Navy got to say what.
They got to review what
Yeah.
they wrote and approve.
Right. I mean, the only form of communication was on a naval ship.
Did you read how some of these guys died, though?
There was a plane crash for 3 of them, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the other guy?
fourth?
Well, he got
Oh,
sort of
it's rough.
squished underneath.
That was
basically.
horrible.
Yeah.
So if you've ever
Yeah.
seen the big thing that, you know, they pour asphalt to make a road, and then they've got the big steamroller job that goes
Yeah.
across it.
He fell
They had
onto
one
that,
of
yeah.
those to pack the ice to make runways. He was like Wile E. Coyote on many occasions, sucked under the wheel.
Yeah.
So it's actually interesting. I've read 2 different accounts of how he died.
Oh, really?
Both of them are horrific. There was that one, and then there was another one where they were using a giant forklift to unload some of these other big pieces of machinery, and he just happened to be in the way, so he got crushed. They put down the tractor on top of it.
Oh, not knowing he was there.
Yeah, which is also really rough.
That's why, whenever there's unloading of big things, I'm far away.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
as
seriously.
far away as
That's
possible.
why Joe is the worst to
Yeah.
help move.
I was gonna say, they're like, Devin, come help, and I'm like, I can't, my back hurts.
No, no.
Sorry. Bye. I'll take
Yeah.
some pizza.
Okay,
though.
so
Sorry.
the 4 men die, and then what happens?
Yeah,
And
but
then they were called in February, so where does that leave us?
great question, Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, so the thing is like these 4 men died, but that wasn't the reason that they were called back. They were called back because the weather was bad.
Or
that was an
because-
acceptable amount of casualties, apparently.
I mean, actually,
A much higher number would have been acceptable.
Oh yeah,
Probably.
yeah. There are numbers about that, but out of 4,700 men, 4 deaths. I mean, but especially in a hostile, dangerous environment like Antarctica, it's kind of to be expected that
Yeah.
at least a few people are going to die.
Yeah. I mean, but that's the thing is like we don't really know what happened down there. They were supposed to be building this base and they were kind of paving a way for an airway, but that kind of didn't really pan out. And then they were supposed to be like training on combat, but a lot of the ships were there for like